Hey guys, it's Marcus and Leo from Big Time Super Friends, back at it again, this time with our review of
Kong Skull Island.
This movie starts off with John Goodman's character gathering up and trying to convince his superiors to let he and his team investigate this island that they've been noticing
To
some
survey
activity.
it, yeah.
And coincidentally, that's where King
It's
Kong is.
an uncharted island, so they don't have a map of it, so they want to map it, essentially.
Now, I don't think they knew what the hell was in this island. They just knew it was just an uncharted island, right?
At least that's what we think.
Now, I heard some reviewers in the past say that they weren't impressed with the visual effects of this movie. Before I give my thoughts, what do you think of it?
Well, I beg to differ with that, because I've seen every King Kong movie, and I've gone from stop motion to Peter Jackson's washy CGI, and even then, I still enjoy that movie. I mean, you can definitely see, especially the scenes where they're running with the brontosauruses down that corridor. The CG looked terrible in that movie, in that aspect. But other than that, I don't really mind the CG in this King Kong movie. In fact, I didn't really notice it. Obviously, he's a fake. Everything is fake in this movie except for the location and the actors. But I love this movie. Like, CGI-wise, the visual effects were great.
Now, I'm gonna beg to differ with Leo here.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed the bad. I would consider them. I'm not gonna say that they were bad visual effects, okay? But I did notice the visual effects here. But here's where I kind of don't mind it. If I can spot a bad visual effect and it takes me out of the movie, then that I consider bad.
Right.
But if I see it and then I'm still engaged and I'm still entertained, I don't give a shit about, over here is a little bit, a little blemish over here. Yeah. Like, I don't take that into consideration. So I'm not going to hold the visual effects weren't so, like, top-notch into effect here in its rating.
Well, and I think what helped it is the fact that the movie tends to have this look like it does take place in the 70s. That's something that I noticed right off the bat. Like,
I like that.
The streets look dirty. The soundtrack helps you to put you in that era. So even everything, the vehicles, the choppers that they used, it puts you in that time. So in my mind, I don't mind some of the graininess in the film because it looked a little grainy. So I love that it looked a little dirty because it feels like it should be in that.
One of the scenes that kind of caught my attention as far as the special effects were concerned was when they were witnessing the aurora lights.
Oh, Borealis, yeah.
Well, yeah, there it goes.
Aurora Borealis.
But still, I thought, I'm walking in, right? I'm watching a King Kong movie.
Right. I mean, it's already
not
fake.
like, it's already, my suspension of disbelief is already, in play, right? So I didn't mind those kinds of things. Now, this movie was pretty goddamn entertaining as far as the Kong sequences. The first thing that I just stood out to me as like one of my favorite scenes in this movie is they're riding in the chopper, they're approaching the island,
and everything is happy at this moment. It's all hunky dory. They're just going to drop these bombs, surveying things so far.
I think there was like some Aussie playing as they're like flying in, and then all of a sudden they're dropping bombs so they can map the whole island, right? And then all of a sudden you see this big giant palm tree or some kind of tree just flying in slow motion. Sound stops. You hear the rotors going in slow motion. And everyone's face is kind of looking at, is that a fucking gorilla, monkey? And I was just like, they captured that scene of everyone watching, and I'm just like, you know what? I couldn't imagine me being in the chopper and then seeing that fucking giant thing.
They did a really good job at introducing him, actually reintroducing him, because the movie shows you King Kong right off the bat. I mean, the fight between John C. Reilly's character and the Japanese pilot, and they're fighting for their lives, and all of a sudden this giant hand comes down, boom, boom, and it's his face, and I think they do a good job at introducing him.
It was so good, and when the 2014 Godzilla movie came out, a lot of the complaints that I was hearing from that movie is they kept showing you Godzilla and then cutting away. Godzilla cut away. Godzilla cut away. Yeah, it was
like that.
I was kind of worried that they were going to do that with this thing. Not the case at all. Leo said they show you King Kong right from the get-go. Yeah. I mean, they don't show you the entire King Kong body. No,
but you know what they're dealing with. Like, yeah. You know what's up in this movie at that point.
And speaking of King Kong, okay, this King Kong was fucking badass, okay? You saw, you know he's been through some shit, right? He had like 3 fucking scratches. He was weathered. Here's
the thing about this King Kong is that you get a sense that he fights on a daily basis, you guys. Like, he's struggling for survival every day. From the scene with the octopus where he's literally getting in the water to clean his wounds, and he's like, what the? He reaches into the water and grabs this giant octopus.
Great scene.
Oh, man. And the skull crawlers, he's fighting them left and right. The giant one comes out. I mean, he's definitely in survival mode. Probably since day one.
You know what? They could have easily made this King Kong movie kind of like a brainless ape that just goes on a rampage, right?
Easy.
But, you know, they kind of humanized this guy a little bit. He has feelings.
Yeah, he does.
Like, you look into his eyes, and he's kind of like a gentle giant, right. You know what I mean? Like, and the only reason why he was aggressive to begin with is they're bombing
the place, yeah.
It's like, hey, you know, if you don't know who the hell's, like, in your front yard, and he's just, like, chopping down your trees.
You're going to show up with a fucking shotgun. Yeah. You know what I mean? Get the fuck out of my lawn.
Or something, yeah. Right. And I like the dynamic that they had. By the way, the world that King Kong... Let's just talk about the island for a second, okay?
Here's something I enjoy about this King Kong in particular, okay? I've seen 33, the 77 King Kong. I've seen Peter Jackson's King Kong. And I have to say that this is the best King Kong in any iteration. Because first of all, in every previous King Kong movie, it's always about the people, the natives that live on that island, and the fact that they sacrifice a virgin or just a girl every time so they can pacify the monster so he doesn't eat them and attack them. In this one, he's actually protecting the people. I mean, they're in the center of the island where they're protected by all the monsters, and the skull crawlers, which are the biggest monsters, I believe, in this island, they're living on the west end of the island. So I think that this King Kong definitely plays into the fact that he's a protector of this island versus just an inhabitant who is the king of the island because he's the biggest and strongest one.
I like how they introduced a lot of different unique monsters / insects to the island itself.
Yeah.
Case in point, there was this one scene where this soldier is taking a drink. The soldier dies, but he's taking a drink and he gets stabbed by what looked like to be a bamboo tree.
Yeah.
Like, just, but you look up and it's just this big giant spider looking creature. Right?
Which is supposed to be one of the creatures from the original King Kong vs. Godzilla.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I had no clue there. There was another creature where, Chapman is laying, the character Chapman, the soldier, he ends up dying, but he's laying on a big giant log.
Yeah, he's sitting on it.
And then all of a sudden that log is like, nope, that's a fucking insect.
Yeah,
like,
it just gets up and it looks like they're about to fight, but then there's a bigger creature on the horizon that eventually takes them out.
Those kinds of things were a very pleasant surprise for me. Like, I just thought, okay, these look cool, from the flying birds.
Oh yeah, with the saw nose.
Yeah, I don't think I saw the giant ants that John.
They don't
Riley.
They don't show.
But the fact that he even said it, like, yeah, there's giant ants.
Giant
here. Like,
fucking ants.
It kind of reminded me a little bit of like the first time I watched Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
And they're entering this island, and then you get to see all these different creatures and here and there. It's like, that's what it brought to me, like, my enjoyment level.
Yeah, those giant water buffaloes in the water that they're like, they probably live in the water but come up for breath every now and then with all the moss and the mold on them. That was a nice touch too.
And you know what? King Kong, all of his fight scenes in this movie were very, very entertaining.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's hitting you with rocks, he's punching you,
takes a giant tree and uses it as a bat.
I'm just like, the end creature, I was completely sad. The bad guy, the skull crusher, the giant skull crawler.
Yeah, skull crawler.
I was completely satisfied with that villain for this movie. And now let's talk about the characters for a second.
So, one thing I was afraid of is the fact that they were just going to try to redo King Kong altogether. That they were going to use the Carl Denham character that is basically the one that's trying to make this movie in the old King Kong versions, and they have Anne, who is the girl in distress, and basically this expedition to just shoot a movie or whatever it is that they're gonna do with King Kong. But in this one, it's very legit. I mean, they have essentially John Goodman's character was marooned on that island before, and King Kong. They don't say what it was, but it's presumed because he talks about it later that King Kong destroys his boat, and he's the only survivor, and so he wants to go back, and that's why he essentially starts Project Monarch, which is interesting because it ties in Godzilla and probably all the next future monster movies. But they have this purpose to go find this monster, and apparently there's more monsters. They tell you right off the bat, hey, this is another monster chase you're doing here, and they piggyback on this company that's doing some surveying of other islands, and so they eventually get there. And that the thing is that I think that they introduce these characters in a good way because they're recruiting these members to do this mission, and they need protection. They need people who know how to do the scientific aspect, and that's where they bring the military. And the introduction of Sam Jackson's character was great.
Speaking of Sam Jackson, I believe this guy, certain scenes. Okay, now call me crazy. He was doing certain things that kind of reminded me of like a little bit of Predator. Now, this is. You may realize this as soon as I mention this scene, okay? It's when towards the end, he's trying to lure King Kong out to him, right?
Yeah.
And the way he does it is he sets off some explosions, right? And Samuel L. Jackson has like this torch.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of like Predator, right? Towards the end,
he's got the mud on him.
Yeah, the mud and the torch, and he's like challenging him, And I just thought, wow, okay, this is kind of like has that feel to it.
Well, you know what's cool about that scene, okay, is the first battle scene against King Kong, right? He's knocked down 14 choppers, okay. And 14. And that's the cool part about that first scene too, is the fact that he takes them all out. You think a few of them, nobody's going to get away. He's jumping, he's leaping out of the way of a firefight, so two choppers actually shoot themselves and knock into each other. But Sam Jackson sees this destruction, right? And it goes slow-mo at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Love that scene.
And everyone's running away, and he's like, oh my God, this is the biggest adversary I've ever faced.
Yeah.
Okay? And there's fire everywhere from these explosions, and it almost mirrors itself in that scene that you're referencing to, because King Kong he's got his fist clenched, and there's fire engulfing everything, and his face comes up, and you see the fire in his eyes.
They meet eye to eye.
Eye to eye, man.
Right.
Okay, in the scene you're referencing to, when they're trying to lure King Kong to kill him, the same thing happens, but this time Sam Jackson's character, he's the one he's actually caused the fire in this one because he's laid the napalm traps. So this time he burns Kong, and Kong is the one that's actually, he's going to meet him in this one versus Sam Jackson's character actually having faced off with him in the first one, first fight.
Now, Samuel L. Jackson, he is awesome in this movie.
He's great.
Another person that I really enjoyed in this movie was John C. Reilly.
Oh, yeah.
John C. Reilly is pretty much hands down the comedic relief in this whole movie, for me.
Before we talk about John C. Reilly, I just love the little nod from Sam Jackson when the choppers are taking off on the boat and he says, all right, everybody, hang on to your butts. That's a Jurassic Park reference.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Every time he's about to do something when the park's offline, he says, hold on to your butts. Anyway.
Now, speaking of like John C. Reilly and being the comedy relief in this movie, he's the only... Okay, so this is possibly one of my negatives, okay? This movie... It does have some jokes in on it, right? There's some funny parts in on it. But every single time a character would do a joke, I didn't laugh. I didn't even smile. I didn't giggle. Except for John C. Reilly when he did his jokes and his one-liners. And I heard you laugh. So
I laughed.
You definitely enjoyed it.
I thought a lot of the things in this movie were funny, and I love that. Because, there's a monster. There's a giant fucking gorilla ape destroying shit, and you're not going to escape him probably. And at the same time, there's a little funniness going on. It's just some comedy going on.
I did like, by the way, with John C. Reilly, by the way, he was in World War II. That's how he ends up in this island. His plane crashes with the Japanese... enemy, and
they're still fighting,
and they're still fighting in this island. They don't know where the hell they landed, right? And I love the part where this is in the beginning of the movie. They're both fighting each other, John C. Reilly and this Japanese man, and all of a sudden they kind of like turn around and King Kong comes up, and that's where you first see him.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that later on you actually get to see or know that those two actually became friends.
Well, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So
yeah, but they also know that King Kong was no enemy, right? They just happen to be like, hey, listen,
this guy's gonna fucking kill us, so let's stop trying to fucking kill each other.
And on top of that, it's like, you know what? No, we can't. We both can't get out of here.
Right.
These uniforms really, at the end of the day, they don't mean anything. We can't communicate to the outside world.
Right.
Like, we're kind of, okay, you know what? We might as well be friends. I mean, it's like there's no one else on the island.
Right.
Until you find out that there's, like, the indigenous people.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a pretty cool aspect of this movie, because they kind of, they were drawing cave paintings and and they're kind
on these
of like
obelisks, which are pretty cool, because every time the camera's panning, you get to see a different angle, and a different image shows up every time because they're painted on different angles.
And they use this kind of method to tell you a little bit more of the story of the history of that island. Oh, there was this, and they kind of I know Kong as King Kong.
Yeah.
Okay, I always say King Kong, right? They never say King Kong here.
Just Kong.
They say Kong.
Yeah.
But John C. Reilly he's the king of this place.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, not right. To you. Okay. Yeah. Now, are there any characters that that didn't meet the criteria for you, as far as like, okay, this one kind of, set the tone a little bit? I know you love this movie, but for me, there wasn't a weak character per se.
I don't think so, man. The only ones that I thought it was funny that they got killed off pretty quickly were the scientists in the beginning. I mean, Kong literally smacks their equipment out of the way, okay? And one of them gets launched into a chopper that eventually goes down because he gets cut up by the rotors.
And, it's kind of funny, because some of the scientists and some of the soldiers that died, I didn't think that they were going to die. And in the way that they did die, like, Kong steps on some. Kong, swipes at some and, like, throws you in the air.
He threw napalm at one of them.
Yeah, and it's like, he's, there was a lot of, my brain is going 100 miles an hour, because now I'm remembering the little things that, little methods that Kong would kill certain soldiers here and there. The way he smashed Samuel L. Jackson with his goddamn palm.
That was a great death.
Now, what do you think of this movie? Possibly, and is going to open up the world with, like, other monster movies coming your way. Now, I gotta be honest with you. I'm not a monster movie fan myself, right? But after watching this, I turned to Nessa, and I'm like, on the drive here, and I'm like, I need to pick up some monster movies, dude.
Listen, man, I've been watching monster movies my whole life, okay? I've grown up watching Godzilla and King Kong, so this is my niche, okay? I love the fact that they finally decided to bring these two monsters together for the American version of these monsters and make a shared universe. I mean, it's been a long time coming. The original King Kong versus Godzilla was just, I mean, I love all those cheesy movies, but I couldn't watch it. That suit was terrible. It doesn't even do it justice. I think the 77 Kong suit is way scarier. That's still the scariest Kong to me. The eyes were fierce, but I think it's a great idea that they decided to finally put it all together. Obviously, it's going to take a few years to a few movies to come out and tie it all in together. But this movie was a great second movie in this universe, I think.
But is it the second movie in this universe?
I consider it the second.
I'm taking it as the first movie in the universe.
It's the first one you've seen.
It's the first one I've seen. Granted, I didn't see the 2014 Godzilla. You have. So
see,
okay.
The thing
is
that
really a second?
Project Monarch, or the Monarch Company, is what is tying these monsters together. They're essentially looking for these monsters on Earth. So that's what essentially will tie you into the next one, because in the next one, Project Monarch will be looking for whatever it is that they're looking for, or will have information for whatever creature will be facing off against.
What creature? Just out of curiosity, because I know you're a monster fan. Mm-hmm. Out of all the monsters that you like, which one is the one, aside from Godzilla, is the one that you're the most excited to possibly see on the big screen, kind of remade and redone?
Here's the cool thing about this movie is at the end, I've heard that there was a post-credit scene, and during the credits, the beginning of the credits, I love how they showed you John C. Reilly's character finally reuniting with his wife and the son, and watching the Cubs, I think, win the World Series in at that time, the 70s, because it sounds like it, but they show you, they reveal to you some cave drawings where they show you Godzilla, and I knew that was Godzilla, but they show you Rodan, Mothra, and possibly what I think is going to be the biggest threat to this universe, King Ghidorah. King Ghidorah is what I think See, I want to see other monsters from Godzilla's universe, but I would be satisfied if they only show us King Ghidorah, Mothra, and Rodan. This is a holy trinity of Godzilla's adversaries. This is his rogues gallery, if you will. But King Ghidorah is originally a space monster. He's from Planet X and is brought to Earth by these aliens and used essentially as leverage to control Earth. But they didn't count on the fact that Godzilla can also, is the guardian of Earth, essentially. And so I think, don't quote me on this, but he's supposed to make an appearance, King Ghidorah is supposed to make an appearance in the next one, Godzilla, King of Monsters. And I think that what they might end up doing with this is essentially do a Batman v Superman where King Kong and Godzilla face off and eventually become friends to fight this greater threat. What it is, I don't know. But it could potentially be King Ghidorah. He has the potential to do that. Or even Rodan and Mothra. But Mothra's always been a good guy, essentially, and a protector. And at times even fighting Godzilla to ward him off from destroying Tokyo.
Now, if you've never seen a monster movie, right, and you definitely want to get into this universe, because you like this movie so much, or Godzilla 2014, doesn't matter. What movie would you recommend the layman to start off with? Like
just straight up 2014 Godzilla. I mean,
okay,
it introduced you to this universe where there's these monsters, the Mutos, right, the massive unidentified terrestrial objects that Godzilla fights off against. Okay, and I love that they actually reference this because when they're on the island, Goodman's character calls those skull crawlers Mutos. He's like, "There's Mutos on this island." Then he says a name.
Really? He said that?
Yeah, he says that. And so
John Goodman, you said?
Yeah, John Goodman's character. So I think that it just establishes the fact that in Godzilla that there's these giant monsters. Okay, they destroy San Francisco in that movie. So we're aware that he's present and he goes away for God knows how long, and apparently it's going to be till 2019 when the next movie comes out. And so I think that Godzilla's a good start. Don't expect Godzilla to be the centerpiece because he's really not. It's really the universe and the fact that there's these monsters and it's man versus nature, which in this case is these monsters.
By the way, I really like how at some points it reeling it back to this movie, right? King Kong is very tall, right? But I also like the comment that John C. Reilly made he's like, and he's getting bigger.
Oh yeah, because the thing is that Godzilla in that movie in 2014, the legendary Godzilla, is huge. I mean, he's bigger than any building in San Francisco.
Way bigger than buildings.
Way bigger. I mean, he's taller than the pyramid in San Francisco. So and he destroys the Golden Gate Bridge. Okay. Single-handedly. So he's huge. And to have a monster fight him, that in this case is King Kong, he needs to get a little bit bigger. Honestly, he needs to get a lot bigger if he's going to stand a chance against Godzilla in his breath. So
comparing him to the previous King Kong.
Those were tiny.
Yeah, this King Kong just tramples over that King Kong.
By comparison, usually King Kong has always scaled the Empire State Building in all the other movies, and it's always taken him at least a couple hours, I don't know, to scale the whole thing. This one could literally, I think, do it in a couple of leaps. Just a couple of quick leaps, and he's up at the top.
Now, I really did like, and I know this is a stupid thing to be like, I really like that they did this, but I love, and it's a given that he would do this, but I loved when King Kong was like,
oh yeah, he pounded his chest.
And then it was just like, to me, my favorite animal, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but my favorite animal has always been a silverback gorilla. Okay, powerful. That to me is like a power, like alpha male, powerful,
all power.
And I'm so intrigued when they always do that because that's like you're getting ready to battle.
Yeah,
that's their like battle cry, right?
Right.
So when he started doing that, I was like, oh shit!
Yeah, you knew he was about to kick some ass.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Now, any negatives? I know that you personally are rating this movie pretty high.
Honestly, okay? I can't find something to complain about. I walked out of this movie for my first screening just ecstatic. I couldn't wait to talk about it.
This is a second viewing.
Yeah, I wanted to I loved everything about it. There's nothing I don't mind. I love that in this King Kong, they shaved all the bullshit in the sense of having a girl be the one that essentially lures him to his death, okay? By the way, Brie Larson, she was beautiful in this movie. She was beautiful. Job. Her acting was great. I loved her character. She was almost like the voice of reason in this entire movie. And even then, something about her, King Kong didn't kill her or Tom Hiddleston's character. I mean, she touched his face. She's the only character that touches him, and he rescues her after the skullcrawlers slammed into the side of the cliff. She falls into the water. And after the fight, he rescues her.
This is what I'm talking about. When they could have easily made him a mindless beast.
Oh, easy.
But
easy.
They're giving him characters. He's a caring creature. He's a caring giant, saving Brie Larson from the from drowning.
Yeah. And here's another cool thing. Okay, he still has her in his fist. Okay, she's unconscious at this point. The Skullcrawler, you think it's over. Okay. The Skullcrawler comes and bites him by the arm, and he still has to fight him off.
Holding Brie Larson.
His tongue comes out, wraps around the arm, and he shoves it down his throat and rips it out. And that's how it kills him.
I thought for sure, though, when I saw that first scene, like, he has Brie Larson in his right hand. He was going to lose her
in the mouth.
He was going to, like...
No, when he kept his fist clenched.
But I'm thinking, if his fist was still clenched, how the fuck did he rip out the...
Oh, he just... I mean, it was completely wrapped
around. Oh, I see. Okay, that makes sense.
Pulled it all the way out.
Yeah, because those skull crushers... Is that what... Yeah, skull crushers. Yeah. They do use the tongue to kind of wrap and grab and throw and just, for me, the only negative here, okay, is that some of the comedy fell short. That is it. The entire movie... I don't mind that. The entire movie, I completely was entertained. I was engaged. I loved the if this is the starting point for the Monster Universe, they're off to a really, really good start.
Really good start, you guys.
Really good start. And I like that towards the there is an end credit scene, by the way. You know what I don't like? Speaking of the little side note about the end credit scene, the movie was literally ending, and people are already walking out. Yeah. Now maybe it's because of me, and I'm so used to the Marvel, and you're used to the Marvel thing, I mean, there's movies that have done it before Marvel, but I almost want to say, hey, like, you gotta, chill, you know what I mean? Like, you're gonna miss something really good.
Look, man, when I'd heard, so I was sitting and I was waiting. When the scene starts, okay, it's like, why are you still sitting there in the dark? You think this is funny? It's like, he's almost talking to you, the watcher. Yeah. And it pays off, you guys. Oh my God. I'm sitting there like, I know they're going to show something. I didn't think they were going to reveal to you the monsters that are coming out in the next movie.
So here's the cool thing about the end credit scene. Just like Leo said, most, they'll give you a tease here and there of the future movie coming out, like, Thanos putting on the glove, and then and that's all you hear. You actually got a lot of information in this end credit scene. You got, like, who they're tracking next. They're showing you the map for, like, Tokyo. They're showing you archival footage.
Yeah, they let you know that they know Godzilla exists. Okay, because if you've watched, he didn't, but if you've watched Godzilla, you know what they're referencing. You know what they're referencing when they show you that image.
And while they're showing you pictures of Godzilla, they're also showing you, like, kind of cave paintings of other monsters that looks like Godzilla is fighting.
Right. There is an image. The last image is Godzilla versus what seems to be King Ghidorah.
Okay, I did a quick little Google search while we exit the theaters. It does look like that
three-headed monster. Okay, it's like a dragon with 3 heads and the wings. Yeah.
And I think honestly, at that very moment, that's when I was like, I like this movie.
Listen, I was sitting there, and I know that the theater was like half empty at that point, but I started clapping my ass off and saying, "Fuck yes, they're doing it right." Listen, I wish they would have given us a little glimpse of Mothra, anything at the end of the Godzilla 2014. I was hoping, guys, for something, because there's so many monsters in this universe that they could use. King Caesar, Jet Jaguar, Ibira, the Smog Monster, Biollante. There's so many monsters, you guys. King Ghidorah is just the top of the cream, but the cream of the crop, I should say. But Rodan, okay, Mothra. There's Space Godzilla. If they introduce Space Godzilla in the future, fuck you guys. This is the possibilities of the monsters that they could bring into this universe is endless. Really,
it is the 3-headed beast. What's his name again?
King Ghidorah.
Okay, is he like the Thanos?
He essentially is. Okay. He's been in more movies versus Godzilla than any other monster. Yeah. This is his nemesis. This is Joker, basically.
So, I mean, there have been, like, King Kong versus Godzilla movies, too.
Just one.
Right?
Yeah, just one.
And I'm just like, so, does King Kong, now speaking of as a layman, okay, does King Kong know who the other monsters are?
No.
Okay.
No, because they only made one movie, and it was a Japanese made, so the American cinema has never done a King Kong versus Godzilla movie. So this is the first time when it comes out that they meet in our universe, essentially.
So, all the BS aside, rating time. Good, the bad, and your rating.
It's all good for me.
I'll go first. Fuck it.
I'll let this guy talk.
The good is the entertainment value. The King Kong character was dead on. Yeah. Like just a joy to watch on screen. Okay, he was multi-dimensional, not like not multi-dimensional, but he had multiple depths
layers.
To his character. Layers, so which is what I like. I like Samuel L. Jackson's character, Brie Larson, Tom Hiddleston. They all did a great job. John C. Reilly also did a really good job. I like the fact that they opened up the world greatly, and it got someone like me who's new to this kind of excited. It kind of let me watch some of the old school monster movies. Let's see what all the hubbub is about. The bad is only some of the jokes fell short for me, and even though I noticed some of the bad visual effects at times, it didn't pull me out of the movie. So with all that said, for me, it's a B. Solid B.
I can see a B in this movie, but the thing is, I love monster movies, guys. I couldn't wait. When I first heard that they were doing a new King Kong movie, okay, at this point, the rights to King Kong were literally anybody could choose to do a King Kong movie. There was no exclusivity to it, okay? When I heard the storyline, the premise, I was a little worried that they would continue to do the same story, but they changed it up in a great way. They shaved off everything that was all the fat, and they gave you just a great movie where they're establishing that we're in the 70s, it's Vietnam, we're the King Kongs in that universe. We're fighting the natives, we're killing them, we're destroying them, okay? And then when we're brought to this island, now we are essentially fighting for survival. In Sam Jackson's case, he's the one who finally finds his biggest threat, his biggest rival, okay? So the themes of this movie were great. There's more than one theme, obviously. The cast was great. I loved every character in this movie. The deaths they paid off. I loved how the people that died,
every single one of them,
how they died. I loved it. The soundtrack to this movie was great. It was toe tapping. Every time a new song comes on, I was tapping my toes. I wanted to sing along.
I didn't mention that, but I'm with Lee on this one. The soundtrack was very, very excellent.
Godzilla didn't do that. So this one, essentially, I think, is what Godzilla should have been. So I'm glad that they got it right with King Kong. With all that said, you guys, I'm going to give this movie a straight-up A. I loved it. It's the best monster movie that's ever been done, I think.
I can't argue that because I've never seen any others. So if he likes it, if you're anything like Leo and you like monster movies, I think you will enjoy this kind of movie.
Give this movie a view, guys. You should have already seen it if you're watching this review. But yeah, it's a great movie. I recommend it. I recommend it even for kids. It's not, the language isn't that bad. There's no sexuality in the movie, maybe a little bit, but nothing that, I think it's scary enough for kids, but not too scary. I mean, they show you that King Kong is a protector, and at the same time, he can be the aggressor if needed be.
Yeah. So with all that said, guys, please like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for our next review as well, where we're going to, in my opinion, going to be reviewing the greatest horror movie in the last 10 years.
Possibly.
Okay? See you next time.
Yeah.